Welcome, educators. Let's dive right into this explainer. Today, we're unpacking a massive pedagogical game changer, narrative-based instruction, or NBI. Now, we're not just talking about telling a cute story to warm up the room before hitting the textbooks. We're looking at a deeply researched, professional blueprint designed to shift your classroom from simply dispensing disconnected facts to sparking real, coherent, purposeful learning. I want you to start by asking yourself a pretty tough question. Are your learners basically just memorizing a bunch of disconnected facts? In the past, we've all struggled to jam 50-plus competencies into a single quarter. It usually leads to this mile-wide, inch-deep learning poverty, right? The students get totally overwhelmed with fragmented info, and let's be real, it's incredibly frustrating for you trying to keep pace, and for them trying to make sense of it all. So what's the fix? Well, let's contrast that old fragmented style with the vision of the streamlined Matatag curriculum. Instead of those disconnected facts, NBI uses narrative as the actual, rigorous architecture of your teaching. Complex content unfolds, but with genuine human relevance. It taps into narrative, cognition, and memory theory to give your students a mental map. The learning actually sticks because they're emotionally and cognitively transported right into the material. Here is our exact blueprint for today. We'll be looking at PPST standards, core subjects, diverse learners, digital tools, and finally, unit evaluation. Kicking things off with Section 1, Alignment with PPST Standards. Let's start with the why. Take a look at how these narrative strategies aren't just some extra chore to add to your plate. They map flawlessly to your Philippine professional standards for teachers. Specifically, we're hitting Strand 1.4 for boosting literacy and numeracy across the board, and Strand 1.5 for critical, creative, and higher-order thinking. See, when kids have to resolve a narrative dilemma, they aren't just sitting there passively. They're actively synthesizing. They're evaluating. It transforms assessment from just another stack of papers to grade at midnight into something actually meaningful. Moving right along to Section 2, Narratives across core subjects. We're going to rapid fire through some concrete lesson examples across 4 core subjects. And the big takeaway here? NBI is a massive multiplier of achievement across all these disciplines, not just in your English or reading block. Whether it's math formulas or science ecosystems, narrative gives the content a purposeful arc. We use a recurring pedagogical formula for this. An agent faces a problem. The student needs a competency to resolve it, and new evidence suddenly changes the story. So in literacy, teaching what's known as story grammar, basically the structural bones of a narrative, has phenomenal evidence behind it. When you use something like a historical diary from a local figure, students map out the setting, the characters' motives, the central conflict, and the resolution. This trains them to read with so much more purpose and absolutely skyrockets the quality of their evidence-based writing. Why? Because they finally understand how real people respond to real challenges. Now, for math, we use schema-based instruction, or SBI. Instead of training kids to hunt for superficial keywords like total, we drop them into a narrative. Picture a chaotic grade 6 school canteen pricing dilemma where they have to figure out what's fair. This pushes students to identify the underlying quantitative relationships and operations needed for multi-step problems, rather than just blindly guessing whether they should multiply or divide. In science, it's all about phenomenon-driven storylines. We're shifting from just learning about science to actively doing science. You hook them with an anchoring phenomenon, say a mystery about a sudden fish die-off in a local pond. The students are prompted to build explanatory models and then iteratively revise those ecosystem models as you feed them new data over the course of the unit. They literally become investigators on a shared mission. Over in social studies, we have to pivot from just telling the past as one single unquestioned storyline to actively investigating conflicting primary accounts. Think about using oral histories, vintage maps, and old news clippings to figure out why a specific neighborhood changed over the decades. This forces students to corroborate claims and builds incredible historical empathy. They get to see firsthand that different actors had completely different takes on the exact same event. Okay, on to Section 3. Narratives for diverse learners. So how do we make absolutely sure these narratives are inclusive and culturally relevant for every single kid in your room? Well, this quote from the Matatag curriculum mandate nails it. Embracing the Makabanza, patriotic, and Makatao, people-centered, pillars, means your narratives literally have to validate local cultural identities. When you weave in stories featuring indigenous peoples, local environmental issues, or context familiar to students in madrasa programs, you're knocking down educational barriers. You're validating who they are as a genuine resource for learning. To lock in that equity, try implementing these multimodal design steps. Provide audio versions of your source texts. Throw in visual organizers like story maps for that extra cognitive support. Offer flexible response modes. Let them tell the story out loud or film a video. And explicitly teach discussion norms, things like turn and talk or enforcing proper wait time. This guarantees that your most confident, loudest students don't hijack the narrative, allowing everyone to securely navigate the lesson. Section 4. Free interactive digital tools. Let's check out a few high-yield, totally free digital tools that can really amplify your narratives. Technology is a massive force multiplier here. You've got Canva for Education, which, by the way, is completely free for DPED teachers, perfect for whipping up premium visual story maps. Then there's Twine, which lets you build interactive, choose-your-own-path branching stories without knowing a single drop of code. And Book Creator is amazing for letting students build multimodal reflections using their own audio and video clips. But we need to ask a critical question here. How exactly do these digital tools help us maintain equity across such diverse learning environments? Because it isn't just about having flashy tech in the classroom, it is entirely about access. Tools like Microsoft Immersive Reader offer absolutely vital accessible reading features for complex texts. Think text-to-speech and instant translation. Canva also comes packed with built-in design accessibility tools. By leaning on these platforms, you ensure that literally no student gets left behind due to language barriers, reading difficulties, or special education needs. The narrative reaches everybody, period. Finally, Section 5, Evaluating your unit plan. Right before you step back into your classroom, let's run a quick diagnostic. When mapping out a Learning Action Cell, or LAC, seminar agenda, the ultimate goal is always standard alignment. Whether you're evaluating one single lesson or planning collaborative professional development, make sure your narrative serves the standard, not the other way around. Think of it this way. The story is the vehicle, but the standard is always the destination. You can use this rapid diagnostic checklist to gut check your unit plan. Do you have an anchoring problem? Are the tasks logically connected? Does new evidence actually change the story? Is there explicit alignment with your standards? Do you have multimodal entry points? And lastly, are you assessing both content mastery and narrative reasoning? If you're nodding yes to these, you've got yourself a rigorous narrative, not just some fun window dressing. Setting up a collaborative timeline really helps your school prep and pilot these narrative units over the first few months. You kick things off with leadership orientation and teacher design workshops, and then you roll straight into piloting those literacy, math, science, and social studies units. Honestly, collaborative planning with your peers is the absolute engine of success for making this work. And transitioning from that initial pilot phase into wider team adoption means conducting some careful end-of-term reviews. You use actual student work to calibrate your rubrics, you sitting on your peers' classrooms, and you rigorously refine your practice to lock in sustained academic excellence across the entire school. As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a challenge. Take these tools, take these frameworks, and ask yourself, what will your classroom story be tomorrow? Because when content is sequenced as a genuine human journey of sense-making, your students aren't just going to learn more effectively. They're going to remember it for years to come. It's time to transform your teaching. Good luck out there.